Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be playing with some of the new release from Dina Wakley, looking at some new stencils and doing some journaling using stencils. So I'm starting off in my large craft journal and I'm using some of the new alphabet tissue paper and just gluing those into my journal using some gel medium. So I'm not really worrying about what direction they're going because they're all kind of mixed up anyway, and I knew it was going to be in the background. I just wanted some not texture but something in the background just to break it up a little bit. So I'm just sort of tearing up little bits and pieces. I did kind of cover the corners and a little bit in the middle, but it really didn't matter because I knew I would have stenciling going in from any direction anyway. And then I'm just giving it a quick dry so that I could put some paint over the top. Now I decided I wanted to use neon paints for this, and it wasn't particularly successful because neon paints are kind of translucent, as you can see. So they work well over the tissue paper, but where it was on craft paper it didn't work as well. It didn't necessarily matter all that much because, again, I knew my focus on this page was going to be doing some stenciling. But if you really wanted to make those colours pop, I would have maybe used a white base or put some gesso, white gesso underneath before I put my neon colours over it. So you can still see it's a fair pop of colour from it, but if there was white underneath it, it certainly would have made it just that little bit more in your face. So this is one of the new stencils, and I really love the shape of this one. It's going to be really handy for doing ghosting techniques and so on. So it's a nice chunky open sort of almost diamondy type design. The good thing about these stencils is they match up really nicely, so you can just mix and match and sort of extend the stencil where you want it to go. I'm just continuing to stencil until I've used up all the white paint and sort of stenciling in and over the top of my patterned pieces. This one's called Angled Lines, I think, and this is the one that sort of inspired this piece. I saw it and I just thought this is going to be perfect for doing some journaling on. Obviously I love just writing freehand in my journals, but I just really like the fact that you've got these lines there ready to be used. So going in with the black so I could write over the top of it. Now you could quite easily write between the gaps. I chose in my journaling to write through the gaps, or on the black bits, but you could write sort of in between it and also, so it's just really funky. But I chose something about this page reminds me of the 80s, sort of. I don't know if it's the angles of the line or the neon colors in the background, but there's just something very 80s about it. So I sort of had these bits I had in my head. I wanted to do some journaling on it and I wanted to use those stencils for journaling, but then I was like, oh, what am I going to do for the rest of it? So I decided I was going to use these little funny peeps from a variety of old Dina Wakley stamp sets. They're just really cute, really funky. So I just stamped a whole heap out on white card and then I went round and fussy cut them out. And these end up being my tribe of people on my page. So they end up sort of coming together in little groups, and I think that's why I really like them, because they're such simple shapes that you can sort of group them up. They can they're so abstract, they can kind of represent anything. They can be really quirky images. They can be, quite often I will use 4 of them to represent my family. You know, you can stamp them over the top of things, or you can just have them black and white. So it's really simple. When it gets to the legs, I chose in this case to fussy cut out around the legs, but you could quite honestly just cut the legs off and draw them in too, because they are really simple as well. So you do you. So once I cut out all the images, then I decided to put them all together in my journal. I also decided I had just enough room that I could put a title on this, and I actually decided just to stamp it in straight onto my page. One of the reasons I really like using my craft journal is it's a really great journal to stamp into. This paper is so smooth, you actually get a really good imprint. So you can sort of do a really good job straight away. I'm using Dina Wakley block alphabet to do that and stamping out my tribe to make my title. And then I'm just going in and journaling. So as you've probably seen in many of my journals before, this is how I tend to journal anyway. Maybe not as line based as this, because I tend to use curvy lines, but I'll choose a space and I will just write in capital letters across it and just journal my thoughts. So this type of journaling for me, I don't really mind if people can read it, because it is still readable, but in the way it looks, it ends up kind of being patterning in the background as well. So if you had the journal right up close to you, you could definitely read it, but sort of from this distance, it just looks like some pattern work over the top of the stenciling, which I like as well. So it gives you that little bit of flexibility in the fact that it's more a design element than you need to. Also with this type of journaling, I don't really mind about direction. So you can see I'm sort of turning this round and moving it each way. Again, that sort of adds that pattern element of it. It also makes the text less readable because you're not sure which bit you wrote first. So it's a good way of sort of disguising how you're writing if you're writing about more personal stuff. I was just writing about, my arty tribe and the people who support me and so on, so it really didn't bother me who could read it, who couldn't. But if you were looking to sort of disguise your writing, writing in different directions will just add to that effect. So with my little peeps that I've got cut out, I'm just sort of gluing them in groups, and again, some of this is actually overlapping my journaling, and it really doesn't matter. Usually with my journaling, once I've written it out, I don't mind if it gets covered up. I've written it out for the reason why I've written it out. I very rarely would go back and read it again. And if I did, there's enough left on this page for me to kind of work out what I was talking about. So each to their own, but for me, it really doesn't bother me that I have got some of my words covered up by these little figures. Just to boost the color or a neon color on this, I'm using a neon color pencil and a chartreusey green color pencil to just add little pops of color onto my little figures. I could have colored these in beforehand, probably would have been a lot easier, but I quite like sort of that stark white element on my page. It sort of ties in with that white stenciling in the background, so you've sort of got these repeated patterns happening throughout. I'm also adding a little bit of turquoise to their eyes and a little spot of white sort of for the catch-alls in their eyes. I also use the turquoise pen to outline my letters as well, just to sort of help them pop out a little bit. So this is kind of like if you followed my journaling before, I'm going to put a drop shadow on my pages or on my letters. This is kind of like doing a highlight on the inside of the letters, just to help them pop out. So here is a close-up of the finished piece. You can sort of see the readability of my journaling. You can see the little figures and the little pops of colour on them as well, and how those layers tie together. You can see everything I've put on that page. You can see the letter paper in the background, you can see the stenciling, you can see the journaling. It all comes together in the end. So I hope you have a go at using some stencils to journal through. It's lots of fun. It's a great way to help control your handwriting, and until next time, bye for now.